We've got some freakish athletes at defensive tackle, edge, and linebacker for the 2025 NFL Draft. A bunch that are going to show out at the NFL Combine. Ryan, let's talk about these defensive tackles first. Two very quickly came to mind for us. Kenneth Grant from Michigan, who's 340 pounds and is probably going to move like a gazelle at that size. And also, we got to bring up Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee, who frankly I don't think is getting enough love for how good he could be in this draft class.
Well, I mean, he was undervalued, overshadowed, whatever cliche you want to use, talking about Omar Norman Lott, because he played in a really deep defensive tackle group for Tennessee, defensive line group in general. So his snap volume wasn't great, but his pressure that he was able to create and his production he was able to have on a snap-to-snap basis was better than just about anybody in this class. So we want to see it on a full scope perspective, but although being a slightly undersized defensive lineman, only in the 290-something pound range, he has a dynamite first step. So I would not be shocked if we're talking about a crazy 10-yard split, a nice 40, good explosiveness, change of direction. Like, he has a chance to test really well. And Joe, literally at A to Z Sports, I had a mailbag this week where someone asked me, if you had to predict the players that had a perfect score in RAS in this class, who would it be? And Kenneth Grant was on the short list, man. I'm like, that dude at 6'3 plus, 342 pounds, if he tests the way that we think he can, this could be one of the more freaky athletic defensive tackles that we've seen come out in several years.
I don't think people are ready for how well Kenneth Grant's going to test. He is enormous. Yeah. And there's a really good chance he could rival the 40 time that we saw from Jordan Davis a few years ago, who was much bigger, but still, for his physical profile, if he puts up a nutty number on the 40 and then also just flies through the rest of these drills, I think he cements himself in that top 20, maybe even higher conversation for this draft. The edge class also has some very premier athletes, two of which that have already been dominating the conversation and are likely to be first-round picks. Shermar Stewart from Texas A&M and Mykel Williams from Georgia. Neither of these guys were super productive in college, so there's a separate concern outside of the testing that I'm sure we'll address at some point. But for both of these prospects, there should be an expectation that they're going to do really nice things during the drills.
Here's a hot take. I don't know if it's that hot, actually. If Shermar Stewart tests the way that we think he can at 6'5 and 280 plus pounds, if he runs like 4'6 or whatever the heck he's going to do and verticals and broads and does all the things, Joe, top 10 pick? Question mark? And when we talk about Mykel Williams, Joe, it's the same conversation. He's 6'5", he's 265 plus pounds. The production never backed up the athleticism in college. He was a little banged up, obviously, in the 2024 season. But this is a young man that I think has a chance to rise in the top 10 to 15 picks because you just don't see athleticism like this, man. Like, there's a lot of Trayvon Walker to this conversation. Like, he is freaky athlete. He's really long. You need to test really well also because you need NFL teams to forgive the lack of production a little bit. And I think if he tests off the charts, we could be looking at a guy that teams are going to convince themselves that the best days are still ahead, which they might be in the end.
This linebacker class, Ryan, also is going to just overall test really well. We've got some guys that are going to put up some nutty straight line speed numbers for the 40 when they run. Two that I think are going to shine the most. Jihaad Campbell from Alabama and Demetrius Knight from South Carolina. I'm a very big Campbell fan. He is somebody who I have ranked as my top linebacker. I think he's going to fly, and we're going to see the range and the size that he brings to the position. But there's not going to be any questions on his eyes and his instincts at the combine. As long as he looks the part and that fluidity is put on display, he could drive this conversation further of being the first linebacker selected. You, on the other hand, are a big Demetrius Knight truther. What do you think he's going to do during these drills?
I mean, every time I watch Demetrius Knight, all I see is range as a kid that is a hair under 6'2", who is almost 250 pounds. He was verified 248 before the season, was 246 at the Senior Bowl. And I think he's going to run 4.58, like 4.57. He's going to do some crazy things athletically. Former quarterback at Georgia Tech, turned linebacker at Charlotte, and obviously star linebacker for South Carolina this past year. So I think he's going to do some crazy stuff. And I think it's the same for Jihaad Campbell out of Alabama, Joe, because I think you said the perfect word for him. He is smooth, he's flexible, and he's great change of direction, which is a rare thing for a kid that's listed at 6'3", 240 plus pounds. I think the change of direction drills are going to be great. I think he's going to test really well. But I think the cool thing that you're going to see, or the most impressive thing, is honestly when they get to the field work and they're asking him to do coverage drills, the smoothness and the hip fluidity, I think is going to be something for people to behold.
Folks, let us know in the comments which defensive tackle, edge, or linebacker prospects are you the most excited to see at the NFL Combine. Hit that like button and subscribe, and we'll talk to you later.